Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. Today we're concluding our series on UVM's natural areas with a visit to the only site that's off limits to the public, Molly Bog. Located a short distance from Morrisville, Molly Bog is a classic example of a New England kettle pond, or in this case, a bog. As you'll see, despite its natural beauty, this isn't the kind of place you want to tramp around. Across the Fence's Ben Willis and Keith Silva put on their boots and brought us to this out-of-this-world place that's here in our own backyard. Here's Ben.
Molly Bog is a protected site carved by glaciers. Much of the water beneath the surface has been trapped here for 10,000 years, creating the conditions for a unique ecosystem to thrive. Stepping into the bog feels like entering an alien world, with plant life and terrain unlike anything else in the surrounding landscape.
It's right here? Okay, so
Dr. Nick Gotelli has been researching this unique ecosystem since 1992. His research has been driven by a deep passion for pitcher plants, a remarkable carnivorous species that has evolved to thrive in the challenging conditions of Molly Bog. Molly Bog's status as a protected site means it's closed to the general public due to its fragile and unique ecosystem. On this day, Across the Fence has been given special permission to enter the bog, which is easier said than done.
Be careful we don't get tree branches swapped back at you.
We made our way through the dense forest toward the bog, led by Dr. Gotelli, and joined by my Across the Fence colleague Keith Silva, and by Joshua Benish.
Watch your feet right here. There's some holes because of the tree roots.
Benish is knowledgeable about all things related to UVM's 10 natural areas.
Molly Bog Natural Area is one of our 10 natural areas at UVM. It's a 35-acre land holding. The national landmark has 110 acres in total. UVM owns 35 acres. This is an extremely sensitive location. We want to minimize the impact on this ecosystem as much as possible. We limit the use of this natural area to very small groups and research.
As we approach the heart of Molly Bog, the landscape transforms. The dense trees thin out, and the familiar green gives way to a striking red carpet. This is no ordinary ground, but a mat of peat floating on a hidden layer of ancient acidic water.
the whole thing, like I said, we're on a giant floating mat. If you flex your feet, you'll feel that this thing will kind of wobble, especially as we get a little further out here.
Standing on the open mat, we are now walking on a delicate surface with just water below.
And again, you can feel the water level not that far down here. If you just dig your fingers in, the tips of my fingers will come up wet here.
One misstep and we could fall through to the murky depths. To understand how Molly Bog became such a unique ecosystem, it's essential to look back at its formation.
So the glaciers covered this whole area. And as they pull back, of course, they naturally draw and entrain soil and everything. So this whole bowl was scooped out. And what's important about it is that the bowl is relatively isolated from the rest of the surrounding water table. So it doesn't have subsurface waters flowing in or out of it to any extent. But once that bowl is formed, now, over the next 10,000 years, snow and rain fall in and this whole little basin gradually fills up. But again, all the water is basically anoxic because there's no fresh water source coming in. And this peat is sinking below that surface level after it dies. And so there just isn't much else here and not much oxygen in it. The water is somewhat acidic as well. And so the plants out here have to have adaptations if they're going to live in this kind of habitat.
As we venture further, Dr. Gotelli reveals one of the most fascinating adaptations in this ecosystem: the carnivorous pitcher plant, which thrives in these nutrient-poor environments by trapping and digesting insects.
Pointing up each of these tubes is a single leaf that is opened up and folded to form this cup that fills up with rainwater. Many carnivorous plants have digestive enzymes that will break down the prey that falls in so that the plant can get the nutrient. This particular plant does not have that. What it has instead is a specialized group of invertebrates that actually use that pitcher as a habitat to live in.
So inside the pitcher plants, a diverse ecosystem thrives. Beneficial bacteria break down trapped insects, supplying vital nutrients to the plant. Dr. Gotelli uses a pipette to extract water from a pitcher plant.
I'm going to go in here, and what we're going to do first is just kind of mix this little cocktail up, and I'll just start grabbing some liquid and we will see what we get. Oh yeah, we're getting all sorts of stuff here right away.
As we look into it, we see signs of the incredible world thriving within.
But there are dozens of these mosquito larvae in here that I can see. These are pretty large instars that will pupate out, and that's what gives us our pitcher plant mosquito here. Now these mosquito larvae are filter feeders, so they're actually streaming water past, and they are themselves feeding on some of the microbes that are in here. So again, we have this whole little ecological system interacting here in an arena. Every once in a while they'll get something big. There have been reliable records, occasionally of salamanders or newts getting inside these. But it does give you a good sense from this just how much biological activity is taking place in this tiny little arena.
Nick's ongoing research continues to reveal how pitcher plants, despite their size, or perhaps because of it, offer valuable insights into ecosystems at large.
It's an entire ecosystem contained in a single tiny leaf, and it's been a great experimental unit. The people working on wolves in Yellowstone have to go to a lot of effort and work at a big scale to see changes. We can do all sorts of great experiments here in this tiny micro ecosystem.
Nick's decades of research in Molly Bog have been fueled by his fascination with pitcher plants. However, his modeling suggests that increased exposure to man-made nitrogen is making their long-term survival increasingly uncertain.
What has happened is you've got, from the use of synthetic fertilizers and also the burning of fossil fuels, you have a whole lot of reactive nitrogen that's now in the water cycle. So in the precipitation, you've got nitrogen, and the plant is now getting about 40 to 60% of its nitrogen from rainfall, just from the precipitation. Nitrogen, of course, is what's in fertilizer. So the plants do receive fertilization, which helps the flowering, but it's also a source of mortality for the younger plants. So we've been modeling and monitoring these plants for a long time, and over that time we've seen big changes out here in the bog. So the initial models that we built about 15 years ago suggested that if the nitrogen deposition stays about where it is, the population has maybe a 50-50 chance of going extinct over the next 100 years.
Human impact doesn't stop at the pitcher plants. The bog itself is a crucial player in the fight against climate change.
This is effectively a carbon sink. Each year it's accumulating more carbon than it is releasing, because of course the plant is photosynthesizing. So one of the worries with climate change is if things warm up too much and this material starts decomposing faster, a lot of that carbon will be released back into the atmosphere. And it is a very large amount of carbon. These bogs, this kind of habitat is only maybe 1% the planet's surface, terrestrial surface, but you've got about 30% of terrestrial carbon locked up in these. So if it starts getting released back into the atmosphere, that would be serious.
Dr. Gotelli has never seen an aerial view of the bog before, which would help him understand how it has changed over the years. So we send up our drone to give him his first live view from above.
Oh, that's great. You got the whole bog. Wow.
That's perfect.
Let's get that mountain right there. Nice. Oh, that's great. Look at that. Wow.
Whether through the miniature worlds inside pitcher plants or the bog's vital role in combating climate change, this fragile environment teaches us that preserving nature is essential to preserving our future. At Molly Bog, I'm Ben Willis with Across the Fence.
Thanks, Ben. Excellent work on this series. And to learn more about UVM's natural areas, you can visit the website on your screen. And to watch our entire 4-part series, stop by our YouTube channel. That closes the gate on Across the Fence for this week. I want to thank everyone who works behind the scenes here at WCAX who makes our visits possible. We'll leave you with our favorite moment of our UVM Natural Areas Series 2, courtesy of Caleb May. This is Across the Fence. I'm Julie Whitney. Have a good one.
One of the things I see is that students come out here and they get this experiential learning where they can implement a project and take some ownership over it and feel like they've now learned how to do something out in the environment to improve the ecological landscapes.
The hope is that the students develop this sense of place there, and they learn all the species and the history of the natural areas.
What do we really want this land? How do we want it to function? And see what is the human role? When can we step in and help it function in that way? And when do we need to step back and say, enough? I think conservation is really about trying to enact a lot of our values onto the landscape. And so we have to sometimes step back and say, what is our end goal?